This module will compare risk factors of the ACE scores, define effects of increased ACEs on development, and review response and resilience associated with early intervention, support, and education. Consider your memories and how much different they are than your siblings or classmates who experienced the same situations. Not only does our brain create patterns and memories based on experiences, but it also is wired to uniquely experience situations based on our temperament, personality, and even the environments that we were exposed to early in life. The ACE study was conducted over 2 years, from 1995 to 1997. It involved 17,337 adults who became members of the Kaiser Permanente, a healthcare maintenance organization in San Diego. After visiting a primary care facility, the participants voluntarily filled out a standard medical questionnaire that included questions about their childhood. The ACE study looked at 3 categories of adverse experience. Number 1, childhood abuse, which included emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. Number 2, household challenges, which included growing up in a household in which there were substance abuse, mental illness, violent treatment of a mother or stepmother, parental separation or divorce, or had a member of the household go to prison. Number 3, neglect, which included both physical and emotional neglect. Respondents were given an ACE score between 0 and 10 based on how many of these adverse experiences that they reported. Adverse childhood experiences are common. 64% of the study participants had experienced one or more categories of adverse childhood experiences. There is also a strong link between adverse childhood experiences and adult onset of chronic illness. Those with ACE scores of 4 or more had significantly higher rates of heart disease and diabetes than those with ACE scores of 0. Chronic pulmonary lung disease increased by 390%. Hepatitis increased by 240%. Depression increased by 460%. And suicide increased by 1,220%. This graph shows which adverse childhood experience influence health and well-being throughout a person's lifespan. Multiple ACEs are connected to early death. People with 6 or more ACEs died nearly 20 years earlier on an average than those without ACEs, 60.6 years versus 79.1 year. Child maltreatment has long-term impacts. To those who experience child maltreatment, they were more likely to engage in risky health-related behaviors during childhood and adolescence, such as early initiation of smoking, sexual activity, illicit drug use, adolescent pregnancies, and suicide attempts. The prevalence of ACEs was measured according to the type of ACEs that were most commonly reported. The ACE study continues now through the CDC as a robocall to anyone and everyone with no bias on age, gender, race, nationality, or socioeconomic status. Here you see how common ACEs are among those who have completed the study thus far. Anyone can take the ACE quiz by visiting the acestoohigh.com website. The ACE score captures the cumulative negative impact on social, emotional, and cognitive development and other impairments in the function of brain and body systems. These impairments are the biologic pathways to health risks, disability, disease, and early mortality. The short and long-term outcomes of these childhood exposures include many health and social problems. As the number of adverse childhood experiences increases, the risk of developing significant health problems increases in a strong and graded fashion. This is called a dose-response reaction. More ACEs equals more risk for negative outcomes. For example, because smoking is a leading cause of preventable health problems, it's important to understand the graded relationship of ACEs to early smoking initiation, current smoking as an adult, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, a long-term consequence of smoking. The health and social problems associated with the ACE score read like a who's who of major public health priorities in the United States. Dr. Robert Anda. Behaviors that are common among children and adults who experienced 5 or more ACEs in the first 3 years of development, including prenatally, are lack of comfortable eye contact, flat or little response to joy and connection, anxiety or hypervigilance to everyday situations, physical aggression, high heart rate or blood pressure can also often have stress headaches, and are avoidant or adverse to safe touches such as hugs or handshakes. Here are some of the risk factors commonly associated with early exposure to adverse childhood experiences. Number 1, increased risk of divorce or family violence. Number 2, increased risk of a diagnosis of depression or suicide attempts. And 3, increased risk of emotional abuse. Children and adults who experience multiple ACEs during the early childhood stage of development from 1 to 8 years of age are more likely to have inappropriate play or sense of humor, flat affect to otherwise enjoyable moments, difficulty connecting and maintaining healthy relationships. Children may act much older than their age, parentified, taking on the parent role when no appropriate role model is available. For example, getting siblings ready for school or bed, meals, etc., and may be more likely to be reactive around relationships such as anxious, avoidant, or aggressive. This is a list of the risk factors associated with early childhood, that's 1 to 8 years of age, exposure to 5 or more ACEs.